The instructions for the Monopoly Rolls assignment can be found in our Canvas course site, and there's a PDF document that's part of that, which I just opened up, which gives all the instructions here. So Monopoly Rolls, the purpose of this assignment is to give you some practice with loops, as well as using a data structure such as a list or a tuple or tuple, depending on which part of the country you come from, or dictionary. I'm going to use a list in my example, but you could do this with a tuple or a dictionary. And we're going to talk about sentinels. A sentinel is simply a value the user enters to exit out of a loop. So we could say, add in a price in a loop, and maybe want to keep a running total of something until they press or enter a -1 or a 0 or an X. So in this particular project, we're going to have the user starting with this property in Monopoly at the go, and they're going to roll some dice. So virtually rolling dice. We'll have to do a random number object to roll the dice, and then we'll tell them where they landed. So if they roll a 6 from 0, they're going to be at Oriental Avenue. And then if they roll a 10, they're going to be at St. James Place. And if they roll a 4, they're going to be on free parking, and so forth. And we're going to keep track and show them where they're at as they go around this board and show them what they rolled. Now you could actually kind of make a fun game out of this in the end, as you could see how many turns it takes them to hit every property on the board, or maybe how many turns it takes them to hit boardwalk. So you can do some fun things with this if you wanted to create an actual little game. I walk you through some of the code that we'll use. We'll talk about that as we go through this. And then here is basically some sample output. And rather than do this, I think I'm just going to show you sample output live. So here's our project running. I provide some information to the user about what this is about. So they're going to start at the Go space Monopoly, progress around the board. As they randomly roll a pair of dice, the assignment makes use of data structures such as list or dictionary to hold all the squares on the standard Monopoly board. It utilizes the random object in rolling a pair of virtual dice and a loop to continue the process until the user decides to end the experience. So that until the user decides to end the experience is a sentinel, and what we have them enter here is an X to end. So we do a little print statement. Welcome to the Python Monopoly board. You're currently on Go, collect $200. Press the enter key to virtually and randomly roll the dice, but enter an X to end. So if they just press the enter key, it rolls the dice and says you rolled a 2 and a 4 for a total of 6. You're at Oriental Avenue. And then ask them to roll again, or again an X to end. And if I enter something here, it can be garbage, it doesn't matter, as long as it's not an X, it's going to roll again. So this time they rolled a 7, and now they're on States Avenue. Just going to press the enter key, roll it again, rolled a 10, a 4 and a 6. Now we're on Indiana Avenue. 5 and a 6 for total 11, we're on Pennsylvania Avenue. Then we roll an 8, we're at Community Chest. Press enter again. And now we've gone past the Go and we're on Vermont Avenue because we rolled a 6. And one of the tricks is there's 40 spaces on the board, so when we go past the Go, how do we wrap back around to know which space we're on? And that's where we can use integer division, or actually modulus operator, to figure that out. I'll talk about that when we get to the code. I'm going to roll one more time. We're at States Avenue. Now I'm going to press an X to end, and I get a thank you for playing. You rolled 7 times. I'm also keeping track of how many times they rolled. If you wanted to make this into a game, such as how many rolls would it take for a player to hit every single space, or how long would it take for them to hit boardwalk, you'd probably know how many rolls they created. So I just kept track of that as we went. Let's go look at our code to make this work. So here's our code, and you see that this is not a real long program. It's actually pretty short. For what it does, Python's pretty impressive here in what it allows you to code in a few statements. So I started by importing random. That gives us the random object, allows us to randomly roll our dice. We've seen that in previous projects. Nothing new there. I do the print statement talking about what the program is, and notice that I use the triple quotes for a multi-line display. And then I put a little comment in here of a URL, And that's just where I found the picture of the Monopoly board that I used. So it's actually in Wikipedia. It's covered by Creative Commons license. And then in that project, in the project description, I also give you the numbers of each of the spaces. So I added numbers to the graphic in Photoshop and made that available to you. So the Go collect $200 is 0. Boardwalk is 39 as we go around this board. There's 40 spaces total if we start counting with 0. Okay, it's really nothing new there. Here we've talked about using list, and so I created a list called spaces. Could have called it squares, however you want to name this is fine. But here's my list enclosed in square brackets. This is a list of strings, and so what I did was I created a string for each space on the board in the order. So this is index 0 is Go collect $200. Then my next one is Mediterranean Avenue, and then Community Chest, and then Baltic Avenue, and Income Tax. And I did 5 on each line. It was easy to keep track. There's 40. It was easy to make sure I didn't miss one, so I can very easily check, make sure, yeah, there's 5 on each line. So that basically sets up our data structure to keep track or to present where they are landing with their roll. Okay. I have a variable called current, which equals 0. Current in this case is the location where they're at. We're going to start at location 0 or space 0, and that is our Go collect $200. Then I created 3 variables called die1, die2, and total, set those all equal to 0. I was going to keep track of double rolls. I actually don't use that, so I could get rid of that line, or I could simply comment it out. The idea was I was going to keep track of how many times did they roll doubles, and if they rolled doubles 3 times in a row, they would go to jail, which is the normal Monopoly rule. But I didn't do that in this project, so I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to keep track of how many rolls they took. So I set a variable of rolls and equal that to 0. Then I'm going to print. Welcome to the Python Monopoly board. You are currently on Go, collect $200, and I probably should have a $sign in there. We could, of course, keep track of their bank account as we go through this. That was not the intent of this. The intent of this project was just to get you using a list and keeping track of where you are in that list as you roll around this board. So then I have a variable called roll'em, and it's going to take an input that simply says press the enter key to virtually and randomly roll the dice and enter X to end. So that's our sentinel. That's the value that they would enter to end this process. I might want to set this to an upper value, so it's either uppercase or lowercase x. I actually did that in my while loop. All this statement does is simply provides a pause in the running of the program and lets them press the enter key. Then we're going to hit the while loop, roll the dice, and show them where they're at and give them a chance to continue on playing. So here's my while loop. While roll'em.upper, the method, so I have parentheses there, does not equal an uppercase x. It doesn't matter if they put in a lowercase x or an uppercase x. I'm going to take that die1 variable and use my random object to get a ran.int between 1 and 6, and that is inclusive, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6. Do the same thing for die2, and then I'm going to get the total by adding those together. I'm going to increment rolls by 1. So I'm going to keep track of my rolls they've done. And then current is going to equal current plus total. So the current currently is 0. If they rolled a 6, that's going to become 6. I'm going to do a modulus operation of 40. So anything under 40 is going to be that value. If it's more than 40, we're going to get the remainder of it being 40. So let's say they rolled a 40, or this totals up to be 40. Well, 40 modulus 40 is 0. That puts them on Go. If they had a 41, modulus operation of 41 by 40 gives them a 1. That puts them on Baltic Avenue. That'd be the first, or the Mediterranean Avenue. That'd be our first index, or index number 1. So we could have done this with 2 statements, and I talked about that in the instructions. I could have done current plus equals total, and then said current equals current modulus 40, or percent 40. But we can combine those all into one line. Now, my space is going to equal spaces of the current value. So if current is 0, it's going to be go collect $200. If current is 1, spaces current 1 is Mediterranean Avenue. If current is 39, that's going to be the last item here, index 39, is Boardwalk. So space, or my space, contains the string of our spaces list. I could have made this a tuple simply by changing the square brackets to parentheses. And the difference between a tuple or tuple and a space is the tuple is immutable. I can't change these values with the list. I could change these values if I needed to. In this case, we're never changing these. Spaces don't change in Monopoly, so there's no reason to ever change these. So replacing this with parentheses instead of the square brackets would work just fine. I could also do spaces as a dictionary, and my dictionary might be 0, go collect $200. And the next one would be 1, Mediterranean Avenue, and so forth. And then I would just get that dictionary key. I think a list or a tuple lends itself well to this. Okay, then we're going to do a print. So we're going to show them, so we get their space, we're going to show them what they rolled. So you rolled a placeholder 0, placeholder 1 for a total of placeholder 2. You're at 3. And I wanted to have this in quotes. I'm missing a little quote there. So because I want to use the quotes, I put my phrase in single quotes. And then I wanted to use the single quote in you're at, so I used the backslash single quote as an escape character, so it literally prints the single quote. It doesn't end the string. My formatting here, placeholder 0 is die 1, placeholder 1 is die 2, placeholder 2 is total, and placeholder 3 is the value of my space, and I converted that to an upper. They're not all uppercase here. I want to make it stand out a bit more in the display, so I made that all uppercase. That displays where they're at and the roll they took to get there. Now I want to ask, do you want to continue playing? So again, I do another input back into our variable of roll'em, and I need to use roll'em here because that's what I'm using for in my while loop. I'm asking them to press the enter key to roll the dice again, or enter X to end. If they enter X to end, then this whole loop ends, and I finish that with a print. Thanks for playing. You rolled, and I just did a little concatenation here with commas of you rolled, the number of rolls, and times, and a new line character. That's the code. So you were invited to actually just copy this code, type it into Python, into a new file. Make sure you don't make any typos. You have commas between all these. So if you don't get this correct, you'll find that when you test it. Check your spelling on everything, and then test and see if it works. So again, I'm going to run it, and here's my print information. Welcome to Python Monopoly. Press the enter key to continue, or X to end. I'm just going to press enter, and I rolled a 4 Amit income tax. Again, I'm going to jump back to the board display. So I'm on 0. I rolled a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 Amit income tax. Let's roll again. I rolled a 5, now I'm at Connecticut Avenue. So from 4, I rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm at Connecticut Avenue. And so forth. We'll play a few times here. I'm just going to press enter a whole bunch of times so we can get a bunch of rolls going around. I want to make sure I continue to go around the board many, many times. Seems to always be working. I'm going to go back and just check your math. Here's I actually hit Boardwalk. So from Boardwalk, I rolled a 6 and went on to Chance. That's about in the middle of that bottom row. Now I'm going to press X, and I get a thank you for playing. You rolled 54 times. That is our Monopoly Rolls project. So write this up, test it, and submit it for a grade.